Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. Gavin Cowan, Brackley Town Manager, thanks for coming to our press conference this afternoon. A really good place to start would be to look back at the first round tie against Notts County. I mean, Gavin, it was quite an occasion. Looking back, what do you remember of that particular game?
Yeah, lots happened since then, but it was incredible tie for the football club. We felt in the end it got taken to the wire. I've won games a lot easier, but we felt during the game that we probably could have won it in normal time. Then to get dragged into the latter stages and then to penalties, we felt like justice was done. But to take league opposition to those lengths and then equally to go on and beat them was really rewarding, and a lot of hard work had gone into preparing for that game and making sure that we were putting our best foot forward. So, really credit to the lads. I thought they were excellent on the night, or what turned out to be the night. And, to go and win it like we did was really rewarding. But, we don't do anything easy here. When we got promoted last year, we did it on the final day and we had to take it to penalties this time. So I think it was very much deserved. I think we were deserved winners, and I think the players had put the work in. I think the concentration and focus had to be at a real elite level, and it was. And so to go on and win it like we did, and for the fans and for the club, it's something that will be remembered for a long time.
And one of the things that gets commented on quite widely are the fireworks that were going off. And what an amazing backdrop for that event.
Yeah, well, you could talk about timing, but it was it was a pretty incredible moment. It wasn't great for me when I was trying to relay information to the players, but at that moment when you realised that we were going on to win the game and we were starting to turn out dominant in there, it was really good timing, and God willing we can do that in the next tie.
Chance Litchfield from BBC Northampton.
Gareth, first of all, great to see you again, mate. Just how big an occasion is Monday night, the prospect of being in the third round for the first time, in the third round draw as well before kick-off? Just how big an occasion is it for the club and for you personally as the manager?
Yeah, in my time here, it's been really rewarding that we've set many records and points tallies and whatnot. So it'll be another occasion where we'll be in the third round draw. That's a real special thing for the football club without even kicking a football. But make no mistakes, we're working really hard on actually trying to be in there and be in there singularly. It's going to be a tough game, of course, just like Notts County was. We've looked at Burton in great detail. You've got a real top football club there. A real squad with a high skill set. We took in the game against Wigan the other night, and we know what we're up against, and we know what we're going to have to do if we want to go and win the game. So, it's a big occasion. It's a tall task, as obviously everybody will know, but again, one that we're preparing for, and this is the FA Cup. So, we're hoping again, I keep saying it, to put our best foot forward and go and create an upset.
What's the level of due diligence been like on this Burton Albion side? You mentioned about their recent loss. Have yourself or any of your staff members been at any games recently to see how they're faring at the moment? Yeah, myself. It's important that we try and get eyes. We're really fortunate now with the platforms that we've got where we can watch games via our laptops, but there's nothing like being there, in reality. So yeah, it was great to take in a game the other night. Learn something as well, understand about them and what they are and how they're going to set up, and we're fortunate that the analyst goes into great detail about how they're going to be and how they have been over recent weeks. So they'll be doing the same with us. I'm sure that they'll be their levels of professionalism will be through the roof, and obviously managers like Gary Bowyer don't leave any stone unturned. So we'll be expecting the best version of them, and the important thing is to focus on us and put the best version of us forward. Do you feel this is the best chance to be facing getting into the third round against a side like this in League One? But now been slightly out of form. They've lost their last two. I know they've not been firing in many goals, and of all league opposition, they don't seem to be in the form that a side would be to put a lot of fear in. So maybe the gap and the difference between Brackley and Burton at the moment isn't as big as someone might think it is on paper. So is this the best chance to possibly get into the third round?
Well, when we're talking about chances, they're probably saying the same themselves. There's probably never a better chance to play us. Our form hasn't been particularly great in the league. This is the FA Cup. Anything can happen. This is why we have got a chance. It's the steep history of the FA Cup proves that there's been many an upset, and we've managed to create one upset. we want to go and do a second, and there's no reason why we can't. You know, there's plenty of talent in our changing room. If they bring that with a certain mentality, a focus and a concentration, we know what we're capable of. And I think the same will be in their changing room. You know, they'll be out and out favourites, but you know, does that sort of lean towards favouring us? Does that put the pressure on them a little bit? Listen, these games are about mentality, so ours will be of the highest level of what we can reach, and we've just got to hope that mentality then manifests itself in the physical world, and we can go on and be better than them, and you know, run faster than them, jump higher than them, you know, run further than them. This is the test of today. So the FA Cup brings, you know, so I suppose it's a level playing field. You know, when you can forget about league, you can forget about everything that's going on. It's a one-off. So go and be the best version of yourself and try and win the game.
Gav, you've obviously given us an amazing 2 years, and probably one of the best days of my life back in April. And we've had a great start in the National League, and obviously the Notts County game. How do you feel that's kind of like impacted the last few weeks, and you know how's that worked?
Yeah, obviously when you come into the league, there's a healthy fear. There's a healthy fear of you know, what is in store. I think a lot of the players will be feeling that. As a manager, you obviously feel that because you don't know whether your player's going to live up to the standard. And as you rightly say, you know, the first 11 games we acquire sort of 20 points, which is, you know, really, really good. And then we go and beat Notts County, and then maybe there's a mentality thing there that's probably the last few weeks, as you say, results haven't been where they need to be. We're not far off. Certain performances haven't been where we want them to be, but for the majority, performances are very close. And we talk about seasons within seasons. You know, there's you look up and down the country where teams are going into leagues and having really good starts and then starting to peter off, and they're starting in a bit of a struggle and then coming good. So, listen, we've just got to keep trusting our own process, and we've got to, you know, we always knew with this new league that these moments were going to come. Did I ever think it was going to be an ability thing? No. Did I ever feel like it was going to be a level thing? No. But then what constitutes that is a mentality. So we know that the real big difference in the National League is a mentality, and you have to be there consistently. So what you can't do is turn up 1, maybe 2 weeks and then be out of it for 2 or 3 weeks. So we have to have a level of consistency. And then we have to bring in all the intangibles, you know, like belief, desire, confidence as well is a big factor. But what's great about this tie is obviously we can go into it putting all that to one side. Everybody now's playing for places, so they'll all be. We're actually training this evening, so they'll all be very buoyant and ambitious about getting in the team for Monday's game, because it's a huge, huge game for the football club and for their careers. So maybe that sort of healthy fear might start to creep back in, and they might realise that, you know, they need to perform to be in the team, in the squad, and be part of the club's future. So, yeah, it's the last few weeks I don't think will impact it, but if anything, it'll be a positive, because we know, listen, the magnitude of what's in front of us is a tough game against Burton. So, brilliant manager, brilliant club, very, very good players, as I'm seeing when I'm watching their games back. You know, we're going to have to be at our best and more. So that's the excitement at the time.
Okay, Gav, you spoke about the Notts County match. Like that one, this match is also broadcast live on TV. Can that be unsettling to you and the team because it's not the norm?
It's a good question in the sense of I wouldn't know the answer is the truth. You know, as a player myself, I used to, I suppose, like a peacock, I used to enjoy, you know, the bigger games with the bigger crowds, and used to find it tough to struggle and a little bit of a struggle for some of the smaller crowds. And that's something that, again, it's a mentality. It's something that you have to find within yourself. I think, you know, we often talk about, you know, your desire and your mentality. We talk about hard work, talk about doing a job and a half. And really what we're trying to do with this game is bring it back to basics. You know, we're trying to say, look, this is our process. Go and do it to the best of your ability. And regardless of what's around you, whether it be TV crews, whether it be, you know, the lights, whether it be the fans, the bigger crowd, you have to block it all out. And believe it or not, when they're on the pitch, they don't really get to see a lot. All they get to feel is all of that positive energy that comes from our fans, and that's where we're really lucky. You know, when we come out with, you know, big crowds here at St James's, like we've done quite a lot in my time here. Hopefully, we'll continue to do that again going into Monday. You know, that's when they really feel it. You know, the positive surge of energy, and I think that played a massive part in the Notts County game. So, yeah, I think it helps. I think it gives the lads a push. I think it gives us a healthy fear. You know, you're on the TV. You know, a lot of people are watching. You've got to perform. And I think that's where a lot of people, football or life, you know, they the best comes out of them when they know they've got to do something as opposed to having a choice. So, we've got to perform on Monday. And if we don't, then we'll get beat. But if we do, we'll give ourselves a real good chance.
Gavin, we seem to turn up against teams well above our calibre and become almost a road bump in their team seasons. Teams that's like Notts County, Rochdale, Kento, Holt, but York almost got over that road bump in the end. How can you make sure Burton come to a crash?
We're working really hard on it. You know, we're as a football club, again, over the last sort of 2.5 years, we've evolved incredibly. You know, we're trying to leave no stone unturned, whether it be on the pitch or off the pitch. So we do our due diligence. We're working really hard. We have an analyst, myself. I'm watching back through games. We're actually going to watch games live and just taking in as much as we can, trying to get some, you know, testimonials, some feedback from managers who they've played against recently. And that's what's really good about the football fraternity. You know, I'm able to pick up the phone and speak to some real high-profile people who have been sort of up against them in the last sort of, you know, 2 or 3 months. So you have to do everything you can, but ultimately none of it matters. When you get out there, you can give the lads all of the detail. Ultimately, it's going to come down to who wants it more, who's got the biggest mentality, who can be really diligent in big moments. You know, what we're seeing in the league at the moment is a lot of positivity, but a lot of struggling in big moments. You know, when we have been successful this year against some of those big times, we've really turned up for the big moments, and that's massive for us. You know, we're talking a lot about that. The National League does prove that the big moments matter, and they don't come around very often. So you have to. That's where you have to be really focused and concentrating. So I think, listen, we'll be doing everything that we normally do, whether it be a league game, whether it be an FA Cup game, an FA Trophy game, whether it be a pre-season game. We always do our due diligence. Is there that little bit extra because of the magnitude of the game? I'd like to say no, because I'd like to think we're at our maximum all of the time. But yeah, there's always that something, that little bit of extra fire in the belly of a game like this, and going up against, like I say, you know, a real quality outfit with a really experienced manager. It's important that we're just doing everything we can to be the best version of ourselves, and that starts tonight.
Talking about big mentality and big moments, Callum Stewart couldn't score his first Brackley goal in a better manner. How do you feel about that, really?
Well, it was a great goal, great timing. And I think the one thing that we took from that was just his bravery, you know, and his courage to take it. I think sometimes it's, you know, are they aware of what's going on around them? You know, as you get a bit older, you start to realise and have a little bit more self-awareness. You know, some of the lads, they do these things and they only realise afterwards. But I think in the moment, Callum decided he wanted the ball. He wanted to take it. He went and scored. He hadn't been on the pitch that long. So I think it's a real, you know, testament of his character and his bravery that he wanted to do it in the first place. Hadn't been with us that long. I think there's plenty of other lads who wanted to take it as well, and I think that just shows the character in our changing room. You know, the bravery from the lads. Everybody wanted to take it. He took it, finished it really well, and hopefully we get a scenario like that come Monday.
Last question for me is, Matt Lowe's already on 4 goals in the cup this season. How important is he going to be to your plans?
Yeah, he's huge. He's huge for us in terms of his, you know, his leadership, his character, his endeavour. And again, for some of those big moments, he's really turned up. So, look, we're asking Matt and all of the other players to turn up for the big moments. You know, talk about everything between the box. You know, we're really happy with everything. You know, there's a lot to be positive about. Those big moments when we've been successful this year, that's when we've been ready. You know, there's been no surprise when the ball flashes across the box, or, you know, we're defending in our own half or in our own box. Sorry, big moments, you have to be ready for them. And Matt's been there for them. Could also be there some more. I think he'd probably say so himself. But with all of the players at both ends of the pitch, we're just asking them now to be ready for those really big moments, because that's where we need to improve. And when we've done it, like you rightly say, against the Notts Counties and the Rochdales and some of the others, if we do that against Burton, we give ourselves a real good chance.
Yeah, final few questions from me. I just want to get a feel of what the feeling is like within the squad at the moment. Of course, this fixture has been long awaited since the fantastic victory over Notts County. Has that been playing on the minds of players at all? Have they been having this fixture in their mind at all at any point? Have you noticed where sort of awaiting it? Because, of course, the league has been thick and fast since the last round in the first round. So what's the feeling like amongst the squad at the moment? Has this been on their minds at all, would you think?
It's not a conversation that we've had, but I would be lying if I feel like it hasn't been a distraction. You know, I think we had a really positive start to the season. The last few weeks have been really tough in the league in terms of results. What's really damning as well is when, you know, you put a lot of hard work and effort and the performances are particularly good, A couple of the performances haven't been where we wanted them to be, but when they have been good and you don't come out with anything, that's tough to take. But yeah, if I'm being honest, which is really important to be so, I think it's been a bit of a distraction. I think the players have been very focused on it and thinking about what's coming down the line, and they're waiting eagerly in anticipation for this fixture. Because again, for players in the National League, it doesn't come around very often. The opportunity to get to a third round is a really big deal. Sometimes they don't realise it consciously. Sometimes it's a subconscious thing. But I think that's probably the case with most of the players. But yeah, my own observations are: has it been a bit of a distraction? I would say yes, but it's not a conversation I've had with the players. But one thing I do know is that they can't wait to get to Monday. So it's the feeling in the camp at the moment is of desperation. They want to get there. They want to prepare. They can't wait for training tonight. They're working really hard. They're listening, focusing, and as staff as well, we're making sure that we're holding up our end because we want to match their endeavour. So I think we're by Saturday after training we'll be ready.
And you mentioned that Monday night, everyone can't wait for that. FA Cup weekend. This is the final fixture of this second round on the Monday night. How do you factor that into preparations, being an unusual sort of kick-off time and fixture time? Most league games are on Mondays, and a lot of these guys are used to playing on Saturday. Training and preparations, how you sort of have to fit that around this different kick-off time, so to speak.
A big believer in it. You play the cards you're dealt with, so we have to adjust, and that's important. If you want to be in big games, if you want to be on the television, if you want to, enjoy all of these big moments, then you have to adapt to the surroundings. So, I think when you start talking about training regimes as a player, you're ready. You have to be ready. So yes, we've had to alter it somewhat. We've had to change it. I think it's favoured us this week, if I'm honest. I think a little bit more of a rest. A little bit of a break in schedule and a bit of a break in the cycle for the players has been really refreshing. And I think I'll probably see that in training tonight. I think they'll be fresh, ready to go, excited. But yeah, I think the changing of the training regime for us can act as a positive. And I think if you think about it too much and it hinders you, then that's a flaw in itself. The preparation for this has started, a couple of days ago. So soon as we finish the game over at Woking, the preparation starts. So the lads have to be ready. And again, no one's going to come and change anything for you or feel sorry for you. So if it's not working for you, no one cares. So we're ready, and we've adjusted nicely to it, and we'll use it as a positive going into Monday.
Brilliant. Thanks, Gavin.
Thanks, mate.
Once again, Brackley are a part-time team against a full-time team. Can you explain to us how difficult that gap is to bridge when preparing for a match?
Yeah, you're at a disadvantage. It's there's no getting away from it. But again, I just said there, you've got to play the cards you're dealt. You can't. It's a decision that we want to be at that point where we're going to go to full time. We want to be able to transition into that. We're a very ambitious club. We've got a lot of plans in the pipeline, but we also want to be able to, crawl before we can walk, run before we can, as the saying goes. So, from my perspective, it's almost again. You've got to play the cards you're dealt. So we have to prepare diligently. From a strength and conditioning perspective, we're looking at the lads' conditioning to make sure that they're where they need to be. Some of them need a little bit of rest. It's not a collective. That's the tough thing. Some of them need rest. Some of them need bringing up. Some of them won't have been in the team against Woking and probably potentially will be on Monday. So we have to make sure that they're all there. Then we have to make sure, we have Marcus, who's our performance coach, who has to make sure that they're mentally right. That'll obviously he partners with me on that as well to make sure that they're in a good place, and then it's just trying to fit in where we can. We're a team that enjoy a Zoom meeting. We're not always in here, but the lads are always trying to steal my laptop and throw it in the bin because we've got so many Zoom meetings. But we're just trying to make the best of it. We're trying to make the best of it, and we know how tough it is from a National League perspective. We're seeing that. We're seeing the preparation times that others have got ahead of us. Maybe sometimes the recovery time. But again, no one's going to feel sorry for you. We will be at that stage at some point where we will be full-time. We will have that success over part-time teams. And I wouldn't want a part-time team to make excuses that we're the full-time team and they're the part-time team. At the moment, we are in the situation that we're in. And understandably so. We're in a real transitional period. It'll probably be arguably the hardest season in the club's history for a long time, if not ever. So when we come through that, we'll be incredibly strong. and these nights against, like you rightly say, Football League opposition, well established, these will be the making of us. It will be these games, these occasions that are helping us to be ambitious. To Burton are a place we want to be. We want to look to them and understand what they're about, and so we need to see them here. We need to see what they're about, and yes, of course we want to go and beat them, but we can learn an awful lot on the night. So it's where we want to be. We make no excuses. We are part-time. That's the way we are. We're doing pretty well for a part-time team, so we just continue to do so. So no excuses from us. We'll be ready, and I'm sure they will be as well.
The FA Cup draw, third round draw, is going to be made prior to kick-off. Now the whole ground will know by the time the referee blows the whistle. Will it be your job to tell the players, or are you expecting them to hearsay basically?
It's not something I'm focusing on. If they hear it, they hear it. If they don't, they don't. Ultimately for us, until we get through and we win the tie, it's irrelevant. So doesn't change anything, shouldn't change any of your preparation, it shouldn't change any of your focus or your concentration. I understand it. I understand from a fan's perspective how that is really exciting, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk around the ground. But from our perspective, there has to be a real professional approach. We win the game, we get to see who's in the third round, and that's the focus. Stay focused on winning the game.
Final question, really, Gavin. Then, sort of looking back, the club's been here 4 times before in the second round, never quite made it to the third round. But every one on those previous occasions has been an away draw. What's the significance of this 5th occasion being in front of home supporters?
I think it's huge in terms of us going on to win the tie. I think it'll play a massive part, and I think the fans, as always, our fans are incredible. When you think about the ratios between our population and the people that turn up every week, I think we must be right up there. And then they come out, in the droves for these games. So I think that's massive for it to be a home game. And again, going on to win a tie like this is massive just for the community. We have evolved from a community club into a professional community club. The way things are done now around the football club have improved dramatically. We are now in line with how clubs at the National League should be, in my opinion, on and off the field. And that's taken a lot of growth. That's taken a lot of time and effort from some brilliant people around the club. So, being at home, it's regardless of result. We want to go on and win the tie, and God willing, we do that. But regardless, it is a reward for all of the people who have been giving their heart and soul and their time and energy into creating the club into what it is now. Because there was a lot of heartache for a lot of years at this football club, and just to say that we've sort of relit the boiler would be an understatement. So it's great to be where we are. It's great to be in this position. We're not resting on our laurels. There's no complacency. We want to kick on, but to have a home tie at this stage of the FA Cup for the fans, for a lot of our volunteers, for the people who are attached to the football club, I for one will say for myself as well, it's a real privilege and an honour.
That's a great note on which to finish. Thanks very much for all your answers this evening.
No, pleasure, mate. Pleasure. That's fine. Thanks, everyone.